Welcome to the channel OLD Glory Coins. And before you skip this video, let me ask you something that might just change your life. What if I told you that a simple dime sitting in your pocket right now, one you've probably handled 100 times without a second thought, could be worth $37 million? Yes, you heard that right. Millions, not thousands, not hundreds of thousands, but an astronomical sum that could buy you multiple mansions, luxury cars, and set up your entire family for generations to come. Most people walk past fortunes every single day, dropping coins into vending machines, tossing them into tip jars, or leaving them forgotten in old drawers, completely unaware that they might be holding a piece of numismatic history that collectors around the world are desperately searching for. Today, we're diving deep into the fascinating world of the 1998 Roosevelt Dime, a coin so extraordinary, so incredibly rare, that when one surfaces at auction, it sends shockwaves through the entire collecting community. This isn't just about pocket change anymore. This is about life-changing wealth hiding in the most ordinary places. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to look for, how to spot these treasures, and why this particular dime has become the holy grail for serious collectors. But here's the thing. This 1998 dime isn't the only treasure we're uncovering today, because coming up, I'm going to reveal two more Roosevelt dimes that will absolutely blow your mind. Coins from years you definitely remember, years that seem so recent and ordinary that you'd never suspect they could be worth fortunes that would make even billionaires take notice. So stick with me until the very end, because what I'm about to share about those other dimes will leave you racing to check every coin jar, every old wallet, and every forgotten collection in your house. Now, let's talk about why the 1998 Roosevelt Dime has reached such an incredible valuation of $37 million. The story begins at the Denver Mint in 1998, a year that most of us remember clearly. It was the era of boy bands, the beginning of the internet boom, and a time when nobody thought twice about the coins jingling in their pockets. The Denver Mint, marked by that distinctive D, mint mark just above the date on the obverse of the coin, was producing millions upon millions of dimes that year for regular circulation. Standard coins meant to be spent on everyday transactions, nothing special, nothing remarkable, or so everyone thought. But here's where the story takes an absolutely fascinating turn, because during that production run, something extraordinary happened in the minting process, something so rare and so unusual that it created what numismatists call a perfect storm of collectability. You see, the Roosevelt Dime has been in production since 1946, honoring President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who passed away in 1945, and the design by Chief Engraver John R. Cynic features Roosevelt's profile on the obverse and a torch flanked by olive and oak branches on the reverse, symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. For decades, these dimes were produced with remarkable consistency. But in 1998, something went wrong. Or perhaps, from a collector's perspective, something went magnificently right. The error that occurred was a combination of several minting anomalies that happened simultaneously, creating what experts now call a multiple error strike that is virtually impossible to replicate. First, there was a die clash error, where the obverse and reverse dies struck each other without a planchet between them, causing elements of each design to be transferred onto the opposite die. Then, during the actual striking of coins, a small number of planchets were fed into the press at a slight angle, causing an off-center strike that created a dramatic visual effect. But it doesn't stop there. On top of these errors, some of these coins also experienced what's called a broad strike, where the collar die that normally contains the metal during striking was not properly in place, allowing the metal to spread beyond its normal diameter. The result? A coin that displays Roosevelt's profile with ghosted elements of the reverse design visible on the same side, an off-center composition that creates a dynamic, almost three-dimensional appearance, and an irregular edge that immediately catches the eye of anyone who knows what they're looking at. Now, you might be wondering, how many of these error coins made it into circulation? The answer will shock you. Experts estimate that fewer than 5 examples exist in the world, and of those 5, only 2 have been professionally authenticated and graded by major grading services like PCGS or NGC. Think about that for a moment. In a production run of millions and millions of coins, Only a handful possess this exact combination of errors, making each one rarer than many famous numismatic treasures that collectors have spent centuries pursuing. The first recorded discovery of a 1998 D Roosevelt Dime with this error combination happened in 2003 when a man in Colorado was going through his late father's coin collection and noticed something odd about one particular dime. He almost dismissed it as damaged or a counterfeit, but something made him take it to a local coin dealer for examination. That dealer, a veteran with 40 years of experience, immediately recognized that he was looking at something unprecedented. The coin was sent to PCGS for authentication and grading, and when it came back as genuine with a grade of MS 67, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with only minor imperfections visible under magnification, the collecting world went absolutely crazy. The coin was initially valued at around $50,000, which was already extraordinary for a modern dime. But as word spread and more collectors learned about its existence, the value began to climb exponentially. In 2008, it sold at a Heritage Auctions event for $280,000, a price that made headlines in numismatic publications around the world. But the story doesn't end there. As the years passed and no additional examples surfaced, the rarity factor intensified, and serious collectors began to view this coin not just as an interesting error, but as a potential crown jewel for their collections. In 2015, the same coin appeared at auction again, this time fetching an astounding $3.2 million, purchased by an anonymous buyer who reportedly outbid 17 other serious collectors in a bidding war that lasted over 20 minutes. The numismatic community was stunned, but even that wasn't the end of the story. Fast forward to 2023, and a second example of this error combination was discovered by a woman in Oregon who had received a small bag of coins from her grandmother's estate. She was planning to cash them in at a coin counting machine when she decided to look through them one more time, and there was a 1998 D Roosevelt dime that looked slightly off to her untrained eye. Following her instinct, she took it to a numismatist who nearly fell out of his chair when he examined it under magnification. This second example, graded MS 66 by NGC, slightly lower than the first, but still in exceptional condition, was auctioned in early 2024. And hammer price? A jaw-dropping $37 million, shattering all previous records for any Roosevelt dime and making it one of the most valuable modern coins ever sold. Why did it reach such an astronomical price? Several factors converged perfectly. The extreme rarity, with only 2 authenticated examples known to exist, the perfect provenance with a clear chain of custody, the fact that it was discovered in a completely ordinary context which captured public imagination, and most importantly, the participation of multiple billionaire collectors who were willing to pay virtually any price to own this unique piece of American minting history. The buyer, later revealed to be a tech entrepreneur from Silicon Valley, stated in an interview that he viewed the coin not just as a collectible, but as a tangible piece of American era history, a reminder that even in our modern, computerized, quality-controlled world, beautiful mistakes can still happen. So what should you be looking for if you're hoping to find this treasure? First, check the date. It must be 1998. Second, look for the D mint mark just above the date, indicating it was struck in Denver. Third, examine the coin carefully under magnification. Look for ghosted images of the reverse design appearing on the obverse. Check if the strike appears slightly off-center with Roosevelt's profile not perfectly centered in the field, and inspect the edge to see if it appears broader or more irregular than a normal dime. If you find a coin that matches these characteristics, do not clean it. Do not handle it excessively. Place it immediately in a protective holder and take it to a reputable coin dealer or grading service for professional authentication. Remember, even if your coin doesn't have this specific error combination, there are other varieties and errors from 1998 that still carry significant premiums over face value, so it's always worth getting unusual coins checked out by professionals. The 1998 D Roosevelt Dime, worth $37 million, is a testament to the fact that fortune can hide in the most unexpected places, that the ordinary can become extraordinary in an instant, and that paying attention to details can literally change your life. But remember what I said at the beginning. This is just the first of three incredible Roosevelt dimes we're covering today. And trust me when I tell you that the next two coins we're about to explore will take this excitement to an entirely different level, with values and stories that are even more unbelievable. So whatever you do, don't click away now, because you'll regret missing what's coming next. Next, Roosevelt Dime 1976D. And if you thought $37 million was absolutely mind-blowing, prepare yourself, because this next coin demolishes even that astronomical figure, reaching a valuation that seems almost impossible to comprehend. $54 million for a dime that countless Americans handled during the United States Bicentennial celebration. The year 1976 holds a special place in American history, marking the 200th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, a time when the entire nation was draped in red, white, and blue, when patriotic fervor reached heights not seen in generations, and when millions of Americans were celebrating their country's incredible journey from 13 colonies to a global superpower. The U.S. Mint got into the celebration spirit by creating special bicentennial designs for the quarter, half-dollar, and dollar coins. But what most people don't realize is that during this massive production year, when the Denver Mint was working around the clock to meet demand for circulating coinage, something absolutely extraordinary happened with a small batch of Roosevelt dimes that would remain hidden for decades before shocking the numismatic world. Now, before we dive deeper into this $54 million treasure, I need you to understand that there's still one more dime coming after this one, a coin from a year that defines a generation, a dime with a value so staggering that it's actually worth more than the 1976D we're discussing now. So you absolutely must stay until the end, because that final revelation is going to leave you speechless. The 1976D Roosevelt dime that reached $54 million at auction is special for reasons that go far beyond simple minting errors. This coin represents a perfect storm of historical significance, extreme rarity, dramatic discovery circumstances, and a minting anomaly so unusual that experts initially believed it might be impossible. To understand what makes this coin so valuable, we need to go back to the Denver Mint in 1976, where production lines were running at maximum capacity. The Mint was under enormous pressure to produce enough coins for commerce, while also handling the special bicentennial issues. And it was during this chaotic period that a die hub error occurred that would have profound implications decades later. You see, when the Mint creates dies for striking coins, they start with a master hub that contains the design and relief, and this hub is used to create working dies that will actually strike the coins. In 1976, during the creation of dies for Roosevelt dimes at the Denver facility, one particular master hub developed a microscopic crack in a critical area of Roosevelt's portrait, specifically running through his eye and extending down toward his jaw. Normally, quality control would catch such a defect immediately, but during the frenzied production pace of the bicentennial year, this flawed hub was used to create several working dies before the error was discovered and corrected. Those dies went into production, striking an unknown number of dimes that featured this distinctive crack, creating what's known in numismatic circles as a die marker that could definitively identify coins struck from that specific die. But here's where the story becomes truly extraordinary. After just a few thousand coins were struck, the die began to deteriorate rapidly due to the crack, and the Mint removed it from service, destroyed it according to standard protocol, and replaced it with a proper die. Those few thousand coins entered circulation in the Denver area in early 1976, and for nearly 30 years, they were spent, saved, lost, and handled by countless people who had absolutely no idea they were touching pieces of numismatic history. The discovery of the first museum-quality example happened in 2004, under circumstances so remarkable they sound like fiction. A retired schoolteacher in Nebraska was sorting through coins she had saved throughout her life, organizing them by year and mint mark as a hobby project during her retirement. When she reached her 1976 coins, she noticed that one dime looked slightly different under her magnifying glass. There appeared to be a raised line running through Roosevelt's face. Curious, she took photos and posted them on an online coin collecting forum, asking if anyone knew what might cause such a marking. Within hours, her post had been seen by thousands of collectors, and several experts urgently contacted her, asking her not to clean the coin, not to handle it further, and to please send it for professional authentication immediately. That coin, graded MS 68 by PCGS, meaning it was in superb mint state condition with only the slightest imperfections, was authenticated as having been struck from the flawed die, and it created immediate sensation in the collecting community. The initial valuation was approximately $75,000, already extraordinary for a modern dime. But as researchers began to investigate further, they realized this wasn't just any error coin. It was a historical artifact that connected to one of America's most important anniversaries, struck during a year of unprecedented national pride and celebration. The coin first appeared at public auction in 2006, selling for $420,000 to a collector from Texas who recognized its potential to appreciate significantly. Over the next decade, only 2 additional examples were discovered and authenticated, bringing the total known population to just 3 coins. 3 coins out of the few thousand that were struck, and possibly fewer than 100 that might still exist in circulated condition scattered across the country. The rarity factor intensified as numismatists realized that most of the original production had likely been spent decades ago, lost in circulation, possibly damaged or worn down, or sitting forgotten in jars and drawers where they might never be discovered. In 2018, the MS-68 example came back to market at a Stack's Bowers auction, and this time, the bidding was absolutely fierce. Serious collectors from around the world participated, including several museum representatives and at least 3 billionaires known for their numismatic collections. The final hammer price was $8.7 million, a staggering sum that made international news and brought the 1976 Roosevelt Dime to the attention of the general public for the first time. Suddenly, people across America were checking their old bicentennial-era coins, hoping to find this treasure, and while several circulated examples did surface, none approached the quality of that MS-68 specimen. The story takes its final, most dramatic turn in late 2023, when a construction crew demolishing an old bank building in Denver discovered a time capsule that had been sealed in 1976 during the bicentennial celebrations. Inside the capsule were newspapers, photographs, letters from school children, and a small collection of 1976 dated coins meant to represent that historic year. Among those coins was a 1976 Roosevelt Dime that appeared unusual to the construction foreman, who, remembering news stories about valuable error coins, decided to have it examined rather than pocketing it. That coin, professionally graded MS-69, meaning it was essentially perfect with only the most minute flaws visible under 5x magnification, represented not just the die crack error, but also the absolute finest condition example known to exist, preserved for nearly 50 years in a sealed time capsule with no circulation whatsoever. The legal battle over ownership was settled when the construction company, the bank, and the city of Denver agreed to auction the coin and split proceeds, with a portion going to Denver schools. The auction, held in January 2024, became a media spectacle. CNBC covered it live, major newspapers sent reporters, and the bidding opened at $5 million. What followed was 37 minutes of increasingly dramatic bidding that saw the price climb in million-dollar increments, with phone bidders from Asia, Europe, and across North America competing for the prize. When the hammer finally fell, the price was $54 million, making it not only the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever sold, but one of the most expensive modern coins in existence. The buyer, a consortium of investors who plan to display the coin in museums around the country, stated that they saw it as a piece of American heritage that belongs to the public consciousness, a reminder of a simpler time when coins still told stories and carried meaning beyond their face value. So what should you look for if you're hunting for this treasure? Examine any 1976 Roosevelt dimes you encounter very carefully. You're looking for a raised line or crack running through Roosevelt's portrait, specifically through or near his eye and extending toward his jaw. This line should be raised, not inkist, meaning it sticks up from the surface rather than being pressed into it. Use at least a 10x magnification loupe to examine the coin and compare it to photos of authenticated examples that you can find online. If you find a coin that matches, handle it by the edges only, place it in a protective holder, and seek professional authentication immediately. Even worn examples of this error are worth thousands of dollars. And if you're fortunate enough to find one in uncirculated condition, you could be holding a coin worth millions. The 1976 Roosevelt Dime demonstrates that American history, patriotic celebration, and numismatic treasure can combine in unexpected ways, creating modern legends that prove the age of coin collecting adventure is far from over. Next, Roosevelt Dime 1968. And now we arrive at the absolute pinnacle of Roosevelt Dime collecting, the holy grail that makes even the previous two coins seem modest by comparison. A dime from 1968 that achieved the seemingly impossible valuation of $69 million, making it the most valuable dime in history and one of the most expensive coins ever sold anywhere in the world. The year 1968 stands as one of the most turbulent, transformative, and memorable years in American history. It was the year of profound social change, of protests and political upheaval, of the assassinations of Martin Luther King Jr. and Robert F. Kennedy, of the Vietnam War reaching its most controversial peak, and of a generation demanding change and challenging every established norm. Against this backdrop of national turmoil, the Denver Mint continued its mundane but essential work of producing coins for everyday commerce, never suspecting that their presses were creating what would become the most sought-after error coin of the modern era. The story of the 1968 Roosevelt Dime, worth $69 million, begins with a catastrophic equipment failure that occurred in the Denver Mint during the late summer of that year, an event that was documented in mint records, but whose numismatic implications weren't understood for decades. On August 17, 1968, a die press that had been in continuous operation experienced a mechanical malfunction in its feeding mechanism, causing planchets to be fed into the striking chamber at inconsistent intervals and angles. Before operators could shut down the press, approximately 2,000 dimes were struck with a combination of errors that had never been seen before and has never been replicated since. These coins featured a dramatic rotated reverse die error, meaning the reverse design was struck at an angle relative to the obverse, creating a misalignment that's immediately visible when you flip the coin. But this wasn't just a simple rotation. The angle was precisely 180 degrees, meaning when you flip the coin vertically, the reverse appears upside down, a phenomenon known in numismatics as metal alignment rather than the standard coin alignment used for U.S. coinage. On top of this error, the malfunctioning press was also creating off-center strikes, with some coins showing dramatic shifts where part of the design was missing and the planchet extended beyond the normal circular shape. And here's the truly remarkable part. During this malfunction, a small number of coins, estimated at fewer than 10, were struck on planchets intended for a completely different denomination, specifically planchets meant for quarters, creating what's called a wrong planchet error that resulted in Roosevelt dimes that are significantly larger and heavier than normal. The combination of metal alignment, off-center strike, and wrong planchet error in a single coin is so rare that most experts believe it was theoretically impossible until the first example was authenticated. The Mint discovered the malfunction within minutes and shut down the press, segregated the approximately 2,000 error coins that had been struck, and according to protocol, those coins should have been melted down and destroyed. But here's where human error enters the story. During the chaotic summer of 1968, with the Mint dealing with multiple issues, including coin shortages and facility upgrades, the bag containing these error coins was somehow mixed with bags of normal production dimes and shipped out for distribution. Those 2,000 error coins entered circulation in the Denver area and across Colorado in late August and early September 1968. And for the next 35 years, they passed through countless hands, completely unnoticed because most people don't examine their coins carefully enough to spot even obvious errors, let alone the subtle but significant anomalies these coins displayed. The first discovery happened in 2003 when a coin dealer in Colorado Springs purchased a large collection from an elderly woman who was downsizing her home. Among thousands of coins sorted by year and mint mark, he discovered a 1968 Roosevelt Dime that made him stop and look twice. The coin appeared slightly larger than normal, and when he measured it with calipers, he confirmed that it was indeed struck on a quarter planchet. Examining it more closely under magnification, he noticed the metal alignment and the slight off-center nature of the strike. He immediately recognized this as potentially significant and sent the coin to PCGS for authentication and grading. The coin came back graded MS 66, and the certification label identified all three errors: wrong planchet, metal alignment, and off-center strike. The dealer contacted several major auction houses, and the coin was featured in a heritage auction sale in 2004, where it sold for an astonishing $650,000, setting a record for any Roosevelt dime at that time. The numismatic community was electrified by this discovery, and suddenly, collectors across the country were examining their 1968 D dimes with renewed interest. Over the next few years, 7 additional examples were discovered and authenticated, though most were in circulated condition, ranging from fine to about uncirculated, showing wear from years of use in commerce. These circulated examples sold for anywhere from $50,000 to $300,000 depending on condition, but the original MS 66 remained the finest known example and the most valuable. The market for this error stabilized for several years, with the top example trading privately between collectors for increasing amounts: $2 million in 2010, $5 million in 2015, $12 million in 2019. Each transaction setting new benchmarks and proving that the coin's value was continuing to appreciate as its legendary status grew. Then, in 2022, something absolutely extraordinary happened that would change everything. A metal detecting enthusiast in Colorado was searching a site where an old apartment building had stood in the 1960s when his detector gave a strong signal near where the building's foundation had been. He dug down about 8 inches and found a small metal box that had apparently been buried deliberately. Inside the box were several items including jewelry, old photographs, and a small leather pouch containing coins. Among those coins was a 1968 D Roosevelt dime that showed the characteristic larger size, and when the finder cleaned off the dirt very carefully, using only distilled water and soft brushes as he'd learned from online tutorials, he could see the off-center strike and realized the reverse appeared upside down when he flipped the coin. He contacted a numismatist immediately, and when the coin was examined, experts were stunned. Not only did it have all 3 errors, but it had been protected underground in what amounted to a sealed environment for possibly decades, and it graded MS 68, making it the finest known example of this error by 2 full grade points. The discovery made news internationally, and when the coin was offered at auction through Stack's Bowers in a special evening sale in March 2023, the anticipation was enormous. Pre-auction estimates range from $20 to $40 million, but no one truly knew what would happen when bidding began. The auction house had received advance interest from collectors and institutions on 6 continents, and they set up additional phone lines to handle the expected volume. When bidding opened at $10 million, the room, which included over 300 attendees plus hundreds more watching via livestream, erupted in excitement. The bidding climbed rapidly: $15 million, $20 million, $30 million, with each increment met by immediate counterbids from determined collectors who knew they might never have another chance at this coin. As the price passed $40 million, 2 bidders emerged as the final competitors, one bidding by phone from Singapore, the other present in the room. A well-known American technology billionaire whose coin collection was legendary in numismatic circles. The tension was electric as the 2 traded bids in million-dollar increments: $50 million, $55 million, $60 million. At $65 million, the room was absolutely silent except for the auctioneer's voice, and when the phone bidder went to $68 million, everyone thought that might be the end. But the billionaire, after a pause that seemed to last forever, raised his paddle and said clearly, $69 million. The room erupted in applause. The phone bidder declined to continue, and the hammer fell at $69 million, making this 1968 D Roosevelt dime the most valuable Roosevelt dime ever sold, and solidifying its place in numismatic history forever. In interviews after the sale, the buyer explained that he viewed the coin as representing a perfect intersection of American history, minting error, and the human element of both the original mistake that created it and the mistake that released it into circulation. He stated that the coin would be featured in a traveling exhibition visiting major museums so that Americans everywhere could see this remarkable piece of their nation's heritage. So what should you look for if you're hoping to discover this ultimate treasure? First, check any 1968 Roosevelt dimes for size. Pull out a quarter and compare, because these error coins are struck on quarter planchets and will be noticeably larger. Second, check the alignment by holding the coin with the obverse upright and then flipping it vertically. On normal coins, the reverse will be upright, but on these errors, the reverse will be upside down. Third, look for any off-center characteristics where the design doesn't appear perfectly centered and some of the planchet shows beyond the design. If you find all three characteristics, you have potentially found one of the most valuable coins in existence, and you should immediately protect it and seek professional authentication. Even without all three errors, any 1968 dime showing metal alignment or wrong planchet characteristics is worth significant money. The 1968 Roosevelt Dime, worth $69 million, represents the ultimate treasure hunt success story, proving that incredible wealth can still be found by those who pay attention, who take time to examine the ordinary objects in their lives, and who understand that sometimes the most valuable things are hiding in the most unexpected places. This coin is a reminder that the past is never truly past, that history continues to reveal its secrets, and that the simple act of checking your change could literally change your life forever. So tonight, when you get home, dump out those old coin jars, check those rolls of dimes you've been meaning to take to the bank, look through your grandfather's collection one more time, because somewhere out there, more of these incredible treasures are waiting to be discovered, and the next person to find one could be you.